Dear friends, before we begin, if you're listening and feel sensitive about the subject, protect yourself emotionally. Maybe pause, make a cup of tea, or read later when you're ready. I'm going to tell you a story that's uncomfortable, but true about boundaries, mistakes, and the courage to make amends. The house was so quiet that the silence felt heavy on my chest. It was a Friday night in late autumn, and a thin moon poured silver light through the bedroom window, carving strange patterns on the ceiling. I lay on my back, staring up at it, my mind full of chaotic thoughts. My husband Mark had been gone for 3 weeks in Chicago, and he wouldn't be back for another 6. At 39, I was used to his long trips consulting required them. But this time, the loneliness was different. It was deep, heavy, and unforgiving. I didn't hear the door open right then. It was just the quiet click of a peg that woke me. Sitting up, my heart pounding, I waited for a familiar figure to emerge from the dim light. A figure stood in the doorway, a broad-shouldered figure, motionless, the edges of which were dimly lit by the hallway light. Lucas, my son, 18, now taller than his father, clutched the doorframe as if it were a crutch to keep from collapsing. His dark hair was tangled, his forehead covered in a few curls, his hazel eyes I still recognized, but there was something different about them. Today they were filled with an unnamed sadness. "Mom," he said softly, almost a whisper, but heavy. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the fatigue. "Lucas, what's wrong?" He didn't answer right away. He just stood there, his shadow stretched out like a shadow in the middle of the room. My chest was as tight as a bowstring. I slowly got out of bed, my bare feet touching the cold wooden floor. "Come here." "Tell Mom," I invited, feigning gentleness to hide my growing anxiety. Lucas came in like he was afraid of breaking something fragile. He sat on the edge of the bed, his hands clasped together, looking at the floor. His shoulders were stiff. His jaw was clenched, as if he were trying to hold back a flood. I looked closely, saw the pain in every line of his face. "You can tell me everything," I said, my voice both hard and soft. What I believed family is about recognizing each other, suffering together. He took a deep breath, his fingers tracing the hem of his old t-shirt. "Mom," I felt something. I don't know what to do. His voice was small, but it was like throwing a large stone into the water. The ripples spread. Lucas was an introvert. He kept everything inside until it was too much. But what he said was different. There was a dryness in it, a revelation that made me tremble. "What do you mean, honey?" I tried to keep my composure. "Tell me." He raised his head, looking at me with searching eyes, as if he wanted to take a map from me. "It's about someone," he said, his voice falling. "Someone I can't stop thinking about. Someone you wouldn't expect." I thought for a moment, a girl from school, someone in class, who I smiled encouragingly. "Not from school." Lucas shook his head, his voice choking. The air around us went cold. I felt a slip in my stomach. "It's you," he said bluntly. "It's you for a long time." From my chest, it was like a chokehold. My son's words fell folding me in a way that no script had ever taught me to defend myself against. I froze. Every thought struggled to fit together, but they were invisible fragments, impossible to put back together. "Lucas," I began, my voice broken. "What are you talking about?" He jumped up, pacing like a caged animal, his hair tangled, his hands pulling at each other. I know it sounds terrible, he said, each word strangled. I know it's wrong, I know it's messed up. I tried, Mom. I pushed it down, pushed it aside, but it was there. It didn't go away. I looked at him, my heart breaking, the child whose wounds I had bandaged and whose tears I had wiped away, stood before me with an affection that tested every frame of value. I call it love, Lucas said, his eyes filling with tears. No one else understands me. Only you understand me. You make me feel valuable. I felt my eyes sting not with agreement, but with pain, because he was hurting, because some part of me was isolated and bruised. I tried to say what I had to say, in a voice that was both stern and gentle, the way every mother must say when she is protective and still sets boundaries. Lucas, you are my son. What you feel is confusing, you are not wrong, but the way we handle this emotion is different. This is not something we can act on. He flinched, as if he had been slapped, his eyes welling up with tears. I don't want this to be, he said, his voice hard with pain. But I can't change how I feel. I'm afraid of losing you. The fear in his words softened my heart. I won't lose you. I touched his arm, my hand shaking. I'm here. We'll face this together. But you have to understand, there are actions that destroy a family. We have to find other ways to deal with it. The next morning, the house felt like a stranger. The sound of the coffee maker was harsh in my ears, the clink of glasses and cups a reminder. Lucas sat silently in front of his untouched bowl of cereal, his face still showing signs of fatigue. Morning, I greeted my heart as light as walking on thin ice. Morning, he replied, his voice hoarse. Last night, were you telling the truth? I asked, needing confirmation so I wouldn't be delusional. I'm not pretending, he said bluntly, his eyes avoiding mine. I know what I said was hard to accept. I'm sorry. I took a deep breath. I believe you, but you have to understand the consequences. Love is more than just a feeling. Love is also a responsible choice, respecting others, keeping boundaries, so you don't hurt anyone. In the weeks that followed, life was a tightrope walk. Lucas and I avoided looking at each other for long. Our conversations were face to face, pretending to be normal. He spent a lot of time with friends at school, as if trying to distance himself from the pain. I told myself this distance is good for both of us. But the truth is, when I see him, my heart still aches. And there are nights, quiet nights, when the line between comfort and wrong is tested. I must be clear, in this safe version, I do not describe or narrate any sexual intimacy between the two characters, mother and child. Instead, there are emotional clashes, inner temptations, and crucially, both of us are faced with the choice of not acting on those feelings. Some nights, Lucas sleeps at home, but on the living room sofa, not my bed. We say little, but our presence, like a smoldering fire, complicates everything. Every time he accidentally touched me to grab a towel to pick up a book, my heart ached. I reminded myself, keep boundaries. Be a mom, be a support, nothing more, nothing less. Then one rainy afternoon, as I was chopping vegetables, Lucas came home soaked, leaned against the kitchen counter, and blurted out, "Mom, I think I need help. I can't keep living like this." That voice made my heart lighten. "We need someone to talk to, a professional," I suggested. "A therapist or a youth counselor?" He looked at me, his eyes lined with tiredness. "Do you think that would help?" "I don't know. I answered honestly. But there are professionals who help people understand their emotions and find ways to live without hurting the people they love. That's the only option I have control over. That was the turning point. We started looking for a professional, making calls, making appointments. In the first session, Lucas cried like a baby, pouring out all the loneliness he'd accumulated. I sat in the hallway, my heart aching, knowing that I had just embarked on a long journey of healing. In the first session, Lucas spoke honestly about feeling misunderstood, about how his mother always listened to him the most, about the confusion of growing up. The therapist listened without judgment, only asking questions so that he could locate his feelings. I also went to therapy for myself. I needed to be asked about where I had fallen short, about my wife's loneliness with my husband's long trips, about how I sometimes sought comfort in the closeness of our children, forgetting my own need for boundaries. This wasn't about blaming, but about identifying the structures that could have caused things to go wrong. In the months that followed, nothing magical happened overnight. But there were small improvements. Lucas joined a new group of friends, started a part-time job, returned to school with new goals. My relationship with my son didn't go back to the way it had been, and that was right. It became a more mature relationship, redefined by a margin of safety and respect. My husband Mark returned. We didn't tell him everything right away. There were decisions to consider. Our marriage began to need tending. That meant talking it out, going to couples therapy, and finding our voice together. Here's something I want to be honest with you about. Some emotions aren't always morally right. Sometimes they come from hurt, from a desire to feel worthy. But how we respond determines our fate. Choosing to face them, seek help, and set boundaries, those are the most loving things we can do for each other. I'm not telling this story to justify or seek praise. I'm telling it to open up a space for those who have difficult things to say. If you've ever been in a similar situation or have loved someone in a way that made you afraid of yourself, please know that there's a way out, and please find someone safe to talk to. Psychologists, counselors, support groups, they don't judge, they guide. And when the last light in that small room slowly turned off, Elena no longer knew where her heart would stop. She had lost, loved, betrayed, and sacrificed. But was it all enough to get peace? Or was it just an endless spiral that fate was forcing her to continue? What do you think? If you were in Elena's position, would you choose to let go, to start over, or continue to hold on to love, even though you knew it could drag you into the abyss? Leave your thoughts in the comments section, because perhaps the story never really had a clear ending.